Are you sure you're free? What else would I be doing?
Hey YouTube, this is Jeff, aka 101 Bronson, bringing you finally overdue the update for February 2023. Uh, Quite a few Dolph Lundgren, Steven Seagal films to add to my collection as I've been doing in the previous month as well. A couple of Blu-rays, DVDs, and two 4K pickups, so excited to show you. Let's dig in and take a look. Here we go. Alright, and here we go with the much overdue update for February. Picked up a couple of Dolph Lundgren movies on DVD. This one here, Bridge of Dragons, I think from the late 90s. Fairly solid Dolph Lundgren straight-to-video action film, also with Kerry, I can never pronounce this correctly, Hiroyuki Tagawa. Just gonna go with that. Who of course was Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat, and also was, excuse the glare, he also was with Dolph in Showdown Little Tokyo. Very solid action film, very solid one, this one. Next up is early 90s, Cover Up. This one was released in the Netherlands as part of the Expendables collection, you know, back in 2010, 2012, when the Expendable films came out. They released some action films with the stars of the Expendables, and they made this sort of Expendables collection. So they released a few films with Dolph, a few films with Sly, Arnold, you know, you name it. This one, I'd say this is more of a thriller than it is an action film. Actually, I had to watch this in two sittings because I fell asleep the first time, I have to admit. But yeah, it was okay. Not one of Dolph's best films for me. I thought it was just okay. And this one, probably one of the worst Dolph Lundgren films I've seen so far. The Last Patrol, which I think is also, there's a different alternate title for it. The Last Warrior, I think. Sort of apocalyptic movie. Actually very disappointing because this film is directed by Sheldon Lettich. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it should. He directed some of the greatest Van Damme films, Lionheart, Double Impact. He was involved with the writing of Bloodsport, and he wrote, along with Stallone, the script for Rambo 3. I've had the pleasure of asking him a few questions, thanks to Gareth Videotases, who has done an interview with Sheldon Lettich on his channel. For those that haven't seen it, I do recommend it. It's a great interview, great. What was it, 1.5 hours, hour 45 minutes of asking this man some questions about his filmography. And yeah, Gareth presented the opportunity for people to come on and ask questions in person, and yeah, I grabbed it. But I'm sorry, Sheldon, but I don't know what went wrong with this film, but it's almost not even comparable to any of the other Sheldon Lettich films. It's almost like it's a different director. If you said to me, if I hadn't watched the credits of this, and you said to me, you know, did you know this film is directed by Sheldon Lettich, I would have said you're absolutely crazy. This does not have any of the feel of the other Sheldon Lettich films. But I don't know, maybe something went wrong in the production. I do think it's a very cheap, straight-to-video budget made movie. But moving on to a better Dolph Lundgren straight-to-video film, The Mechanic. Not to be confused with the Charles Bronson 1972 classic, The Mechanic, of the same name. Well, it's the same name, but obviously this is the Russian version of, I guess, pronounce it The Mechanic, I think, in which Dolph Lundgren plays a Russian ex-Spetsnaz military soldier who actually is out for revenge. His wife and son, I think, they get killed in the opening scene. This is a very, very solid early 2000s, mid 2000s, 2005. Wait, the camera isn't focusing. Yeah, it is 2005, so it's the mid 2000s. Very solid action film. Do recommend that one. The Mechanic. Next up, probably one of the most underrated Dolph Lundgren films. I finally saw this film here, Men of War. Yeah, great film. Great action scenes. This is I'd say one of the must-watch Dolph Lundgren films of all of his solo films. You know, if you take his body of work away from the Rocky Fours and the Expendables and the films that he did, which are more ensembles, and even Universal Soldier, which is more of a Van Damme film. Just his solo films. This one, Joshua Tree, aka Army of One, and Showdown Little Tokyo, Red Scorpion. Fantastic films. Those are definitely some of the must-watch Dolph Lundgren films. Next up is again a late 90s actioner, Stormcatcher, which this film is directed by Anthony Hitchcock, one of the two, whichever way you pronounce it. Now, the only film that I know of this director is the abysmal Steven Seagal 2005 straight-to-DVD actioner, Submerged, which that's a piece of shit. That's really a terrible, terrible film. This one, much better film. Yeah, very solid Dolph Lundgren film. Really underrated. I would watch it again in a heartbeat. I thought it was a very good waste of like 90 minutes. Entertaining all the way through. So next up is again another one I would say is underrated. Sweepers. You got Dolph looking a bit like Indiana Jones here, but it's actually a very good story where he's a minesweeper and he's sort of working in Angola, working on the landmines. In the opening scene, a tragedy befalls him, which adds drama to this piece. And it's a bit of a redemption story as well, and of course it's a pretty kick-ass action film. Another Steven Seagal connection with this film. This is directed by Keone Waxman, who directed, it's got to be at least 7 or 8 Steven Seagal straight-to-DVD films later on down the road, but this is a very good one in my opinion, underrated. Next up is a Jean-Claude Van Damme straight-to-DVD film on DVD. This is a UK DVD, Derailed. I think this is pretty much widely regarded among fans of Van Damme, who have checked out pretty much every film he did. It's widely considered the worst straight-to-video or worst Van Damme movie. Actually, upon rewatching it here, I didn't mind it all too much. It's still a very low-budget film where Van Damme is on a train. There's a virus. It says right there, a deadly virus, only one way to stop it. One complaint, I do have to switch out the case because the disc is loose constantly in it. This sort of thing that holds the disc in place, it snapped off. Actually, upon opening it, this was a sealed copy, brand new, but this was broken from the get-go, so I have to switch out the DVD case. Put the disc in a while. Actually, after the video, I think I'm going to switch out the case because it's really bugging me. But yeah, again, I always was, I've seen this a few times years and years ago. Hadn't seen it in a good while. Rewatched it, and I was going into it expecting like, yeah, this is the worst Van Damme film. I'm really not going to be enjoying this. But actually, I found myself not minding the film too much. It's not a great one. It's not a good one. I would say this is an okay Van Damme. I still think this is miles above any of the Seagal stuff we're going to get later on. But yeah, actually, I would put it up above this one. I wasn't too much of a fan of this film here, Second in Command. First time owning it on DVD, but I had seen it a few times. I never really cared too much for this particular Van Damme film. I would actually, in my humble opinion, I would put Derailed above Second in Command, which this is, I think Shannon Lettich has involvement with this film. I think, didn't he write it? Or I can't find it. I might be completely wrong. I'm seeing story by and screenplay by. I don't see Shannon Lettich, so I was making that up. I'm sorry. I thought he had involvement with this one. But yeah, this is not one of my favorite Van Damme films. I would put this really in the bottom for me personally. This is one of my favorite Van Damme straight-to-video films from 2011, 2012, Six Bullets, which is directed by Ernie Barbarash, who I think he worked with Van Damme about 2 or 3 times. I have another film that they collaborated on, which I'm going to show after this one. But yeah, I really, really like this film. This is a bit of like, sort of a riff on Taken, where it deals with kidnapped children and stuff like that. And Van Damme has to go in and rescue a child on a mission. I like this film. I think this is a very solid straight-to-video entry that Van Damme did. Next up, I think the second of the... Oh no, it might be the first. I think Van Damme and Ernie Barbarash worked on this one, Pound of Flesh, Six Bullets, and on Assassination Games. Assassination Games I do already have in my collection, so I've completed the Ernie Barbarash Van Damme trilogy with Pound of Flesh from 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Not a film that sort of gets talked about, not one that is sort of liked by Van Damme fans. But I don't know, I sort of found myself enjoying this one. In which Van Damme, it deals with like the black market organ traders, like people who just take your kidney or your liver, they knock you out, they remove your organs and they sell it on the black market. That sort of story. I think a similar story was in Skin Trade with Dolph Lundgren, another straight-to-video film from around this era. Probably the last solid / decent Van Damme film up to this point. I did like The Bouncer in 2018, I think there was, or Lucas as it's also known, but I still think this is a great action, or one of the last great Van Damme, solid Van Damme films. Moving over to Sensei Steven Seagal, picked up 3 movies to further add to my almost completed Seagal collection. I'm a few titles away from having the complete collection. I picked up this film here, Attrition, from 2019, 2018. Actually a film in which Seagal gave a bit of an effort. I was shocked. And this one, even this German Blu-ray, it has a sort of special features featurette behind the scenes on it. And Seagal was actually interviewed for this one, and Seagal said it was a passion project of his. He wanted to get this film going, I think, since the 90s or the early 2000s. And he was actually invested with this film, and you know what? I have to say it shows. This was actually not too bad. Am I going soft? Am I warming on Seagal? Because I was really rough on him a few years ago. I don't know. But I actually did not mind Attrition. This one here, yeah, this is a fairly typical, crappy Seagal straight-to-video film. End of a Gun. Again, German Blu-ray. These German Blu-rays are cheaper than some of the Seagal DVDs in the Netherlands. So I expect a few of the Seagal films to be picked up from Germany because they're cheaper. Yeah, this one didn't do much for me. Fairly run-of-the-mill, standard Seagal fare. This one, End of a Gun. Yeah. This is why people don't like Seagal. Next up and last up for this month is Code of Honor. You know what? It's a pretty crappy one. It has a terrible plot twist at the end, which really came out of left field, and sort of didn't make much sense. But I thought there were decent action scenes in this. There's CGI blood that they use in this, but I think it's actually fairly decent CGI blood as far as that goes. I still prefer blood scripts all the way. But there were actually some pretty cool scenes in this one. So yeah, this again was a step up. I mean, especially from this film, in my opinion. So, but yeah, again, I'm only getting all these crappy Seagal films to complete my collection, so I can at least say that I have a complete Seagal collection. Not that it's a big honor to have a big complete Seagal collection, but I'm a completionist. You know, if I have so and so much titles from a certain actor, I might as well complete it and have the full collection. So that's really why. Moving over to some other Blu-rays before we move over to the 4K pickups. Picked up this here in Germany, the Blues Brothers Blu-ray. It's been a long time coming. It's a great film. It's a really good film. One that I've always enjoyed, but I never owned it. So I saw it as in the physical media store I go to in Germany, and I decided to pick it up. And it's the extended version. And yeah, what can I say? The Blues Brothers, great 80s comedy slash musical. A lot of you might know I'm not a fan of musicals, but I do enjoy the Blues Brothers. I mean, I think there's hardly anyone who doesn't. So next up is another action classic, very underrated actioner from the 90s. Stone Cold, Brian Bosworth, Lance Henriksen. You also have William Forsythe in this one. Directed by Craig R. Baxley, who is a great action director. He did a lot of the action stuff and the second unit work on the A-Team. He did Action Jackson. He did this one. He did Dark Angel with Dolph Lundgren, aka I Come in Peace. Yeah, this is a great one. I know my buddy Ramon, the Dutch film buff, he always says this is one of the most, or probably the most underrated action film, and I have to agree with him. This is a really fantastic actioner, and one that, in my opinion, can join that group of underrated actioners. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. This here on German Media Book. I saw this in the store, and I was like, I have the film on DVD, but here's a very nice looking media book, and you know, you guys know how much I like my media books. Let's move the as I'm almost knocking over the camera, let's remove the J card here that was on the back and show you the inside of this beautiful media book. Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, great film with Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke. Let's see if I can move the pile out of the way so we can have more space. Yeah, again, it's another film that I think it's just purely entertaining action. Very fun way to spend 90 minutes. And Tom Sizemore, the late Tom Sizemore, as the villain in this film. Tom Sizemore, of course, passed away this month. May you rest in peace. Yeah, man, this is a great film. I really enjoyed the dynamic between Johnson and Mickey Rourke. The action scenes are top notch. The only thing I found, actually, and spoilers for those that haven't seen the film yet, but actually at the end of the film, where I actually forgot about the sort of very bad green screen shot that they use in the end, where Tom Sizemore's character falls out of the window of a, what is like a 20-story building, whatever. There's a very wonky green screen shot. I when I saw it, I just started laughing. I forgot all about that. I forgot that that was in there. And yeah, it's really not a great effect, but you know, they tried for the early 90s. And I think this wasn't the most high budgeted action film. So they had to work with what they had. So, I mean, I get it, but it still was very funny to see. But other than that one shot, this is a very great action film, buddy film, action film. Next up, the two last pickups are the 4K pickups for this month. We picked up Clint Eastwood in The Line of Fire, alongside John Malkovich and Rene Russo, directed by Wolfgang Peterson. I have to say, this is probably one of the best looking films on 4K I have seen so far, of older films, that is. You know, this film from 1994, I want to say, 93, 94. It really looked stunning on 4K. And it's a great Clint Eastwood film. Probably one that would be in my top 10, I would say. But then again, it's very hard to put a top 10 Eastwood list together. I've been trying and trying for years now. They're just, you know, just always, there's going to be films that you're like, no, but those are also top 10. It's very hard to condense the great body of work of Eastwood into 10 of your favorite films, because you're always going to feel like you're leaving some out. But next and last up for this month, the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of The Untouchables. Again, this is the German 4K edition. One of my favorite gangster films, one of my favorite De Palma films, one of my favorite Sean Connery films. This is a great movie, The Untouchables. There's your 4K disc, there's your Blu-ray disc. This also looked really, really good on 4K, I must say. Paramount did a splendid job with the restoration and the transfer. And yeah, what can I say about the film? It's one of my favorites. Sean Connery, he deservedly won the Oscar for this film. I love Big Sean and everything, but this is definitely one of his best performances ever. You know, you want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulled your knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way, and that's how you get Capone. I love this film, and Andy Garcia and Robert De Niro as Al Capone himself as well. I mean, yeah, what can I say? Nothing left to say. Great film. Check it out for those that haven't. It's a masterpiece, and that's the update for February. So there you guys have it. That was the update for February 2023. Another great month with some great additions to the collection. I also got a package late February from my mate Carlos, Eastwood for Life fan. I purposely did not show them in this video because I have done a separate unboxing video for that is coming soon after this video as well. And by that time we will already be looking forward to the March update, which I promise that will be somewhere in the beginning of the month. That will come a little bit earlier. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. As always, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and keep punching. And we'll see each other real soon. Take care.